Do you crave adventure? Do you love the sea? Then tonight, sail with me, with Sinbad the sailor, on a new, perilous journey. Venture into uncharted waters, uncover treasures whispered of in legend, and be part of the story as it's written. After years of fortune and rest, Sinbad swore he'd never face the sea again. But the call of adventure is a voice no sailor can silence. Soon, he found himself on the deck of a grand ship, its sails billowing under a crimson dawn. The crew laughed, the cargo was rich, and the sea lay calm, too calm. Days later, dark clouds rose from the horizon like towers of smoke. The wind howled, ropes snapped, and monstrous waves hurled the ship into chaos. Then, a land appeared, not the golden shores they had dreamed of, but a strange island, silent and watching. Sinbad felt it immediately. Something here was wrong. After returning from his third voyage, I swore to myself that I would never again set foot on a ship. My house in Baghdad overflowed with treasures, pearls from distant seas, silks from the east, and gold coins that clinked like rain in the hands. Yet, peace was a restless companion. No feast tasted sweet enough, no garden was green enough, and no song from the minstrels could still the hunger in my soul. One evening, as I sat in my courtyard sipping sherbet under the orange glow of the setting sun, a merchant from Basra arrived. His stories were like sparks in dry grass, tales of islands filled with sapphires, rivers that ran with liquid silver, and kings who ruled from thrones carved of crystal. Each word was a chain pulling me toward the sea once more. I fought the temptation. For days I walked the markets, bought fine carpets, and listened to the muezzin's call from the minarets. But the urge grew like a storm on the horizon. Finally, I could resist no longer. I sold part of my goods, gathered my most trusted companions, and journeyed to the port. The sea greeted me like an old, dangerous friend, shimmering in the sunlight, hiding its true face beneath gentle waves. Our ship was sturdy, its sails white as fresh linen, its hull smelling of new timber and tar. The captain, a man with eyes like polished obsidian, promised us fair winds and a safe journey. As we pushed away from the dock, Baghdad faded behind us, a jewel vanishing into the mist, and ahead lay nothing but the vast, untamed ocean and the promise of another tale worthy of 1,000 nights. For many days, the voyage was as peaceful as a dream. The sails swelled with warm winds, dolphins leapt alongside the bow, and the sky was so clear at night that the stars seemed close enough to touch. We traded spices and silks at small ports along the coast, each stop filling our chests with coin and our hearts with adventure. But on the 12th day at sea, the world began to change. The air grew heavy and thick, and a strange greenish haze lay over the horizon. The water no longer shimmered blue but swirled in hues of dark emerald, as if the sea itself had soured. The wind, once our friend, began to howl in long, mournful cries, like the voices of lost sailors. At first, the crew whispered of storms, nothing more. But the captain's brow furrowed. "I have sailed these waters for 20 years, he murmured, "and I know this is no ordinary wind." His words chilled my blood. That night, the waves began to rise. They did not crash as storms do, but rolled beneath us like the breathing of some enormous beast lurking just below the surface. We saw no moon, no stars, only darkness so deep it felt alive. By morning, the sea had turned against us completely. The waves snapped at our sides, salt spray stung our eyes, and the timbers groaned with each shuddering blow. Then came the sound, a deep, echoing roar from below, and every man froze. It was not the voice of the wind, nor of any storm we knew. Something vast moved in the water, circling us like a predator. The first blow came without warning. A massive wave, taller than the mast, rose out of the black water and slammed into our side with the force of 100 cannons. Men were thrown from their posts, barrels rolled across the deck, and the ship groaned as if it might split in two. "Hold fast," the captain roared, but his voice was nearly swallowed by the roaring sea. The wind screamed through the rigging like 1,000 whips, tearing at our sails until the canvas snapped and shredded in the gale. Then came the second strike, fiercer, faster. The sea was no longer just water. It was alive, raging, snarling, smashing us from all sides. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the horror for a heartbeat, the waves curling like claws, reaching to drag us down. One man lost his grip and vanished into the darkness. Another clung to the railing, his eyes wide with terror, as the ocean tried to rip him away. The deck tilted steeply, water rushing over our boots, the smell of salt and fear choking the air. And somewhere in the depths below, that same terrible roar echoed again. Closer! The storm's fury had reached its peak, but what rose from the depths was no ordinary wave. Out of the black water, a shadow loomed, vast, shifting, and impossibly huge. At first, I thought my eyes deceived me, but then the lightning struck again, and I saw it. A monstrous shape, darker than the night itself, with coils thicker than the ship's masts and eyes like molten gold, watching us from just beneath the surface. It circled slowly, each movement sending whirlpools spinning around the hull. The ocean seemed to obey it, waves bent toward its will, crashing against us in perfect rhythm, as if to weaken the ship before the final strike. The crew shouted prayers and curses alike. One man dropped to his knees, clutching a talisman, while another frantically hacked at the tangled ropes with a dagger. The captain's knuckles turned white around the wheel, his eyes locked on the boiling water ahead. Then, without warning, the creature's massive tail broke the surface, smashing into the side of the ship with a thunderous crack. Wood splintered, men screamed, and the deck tilted sharply. Water surged in, filling the lower hold. We were no longer just fighting a storm. We were battling the sea's own guardian, a beast older than our world, and it wanted us drowned. The ship groaned like a wounded animal as the beast's tail vanished beneath the waves. For a moment, there was silence, the eerie kind that feels heavier than the roar of a storm. Every man on deck froze, breathless, eyes scanning the black water. Then, the sea opened. It wasn't a wave, but a spiraling pit, a maelstrom as wide as the ship itself. The water spun faster and faster, dragging us toward its hungry center. I felt the deck shudder under my feet, the nails in the planks straining against the pull. "Cut the sails," the captain bellowed. His voice was almost swallowed by the wind, but the crew obeyed, slashing the ropes. The sails collapsed with a heavy snap, but it was like trying to hold back a flood with bare hands. The beast's golden eyes reappeared in the churning water, watching us as the vortex drew us in. I swear I saw its jaw curve into something like a smile, as if this was a game it had played 1,000 times before. The bow dipped sharply, water rushing over the rail. Men clung to anything they could grip, knuckles white, faces pale. I could taste the salt in the air, heavy and sharp, mixed with the fear that seeped from every man's breath. And then, the ship tipped forward, plunging straight toward the black heart of the maelstrom. The moment we crossed the rim of the maelstrom, the world changed. It was as if the sea had swallowed the sky. Light vanished, replaced by a dim, greenish glow that seemed to come from the water itself. The roar of the vortex became a deep, bone-vibrating hum, like the heartbeat of some colossal creature. The ship spiraled downward, spinning so fast I thought my stomach would tear free. Water sprayed in sheets, cold as knives, stinging my skin. Above us, or what had once been above, the circle of daylight shrank, framed by the twisting walls of the vortex. I knew if it closed completely, we would never see the surface again. Something moved in those swirling walls. Shapes, long and sinuous, darted just beyond sight, like shadows swimming inside the current. One slid closer, and for the briefest instant, I saw it clearly. Scales of deep obsidian, a mouth filled with teeth like polished ivory, and eyes that glowed the same molten gold as the beast from before. The deck pitched violently. A barrel broke loose, smashing into a sailor's leg with a sickening crack. His scream was ripped away by the wind. I lunged, grabbing the nearest rope, feeling it bite into my palms as I fought to stay upright. Then, with a sound like the tearing of the world, the bow struck something, not water, not rock, but a vast, fleshy surface that shifted beneath us. The ship lurched sideways, and the glowing eyes moved again, this time directly beneath our keel. We weren't just in the maelstrom. We were in the lair. The ship groaned under the crushing pull, timbers screaming as if the ocean were trying to wring it apart. Then the water erupted, not in spray, but in flesh. A serpentine neck, thicker than the mainmast, burst from the depths, sending a wave that swept 3 men clean overboard. Their cries were swallowed instantly. The creature's skin shimmered like wet obsidian, each movement catching flecks of that molten gold deep in its scales. It didn't roar, it hissed, a low, resonant sound that rattled the teeth in my skull. The stench hit next, a blend of brine, blood, and something old, something that had been rotting far beneath the waves for centuries. It circled us slowly, a predator savoring the moment before the kill. The maelstrom itself seemed to bow to it, its spirals bending and shifting with the monster's movements. I could see now the truth. This whirlpool was no random curse of nature. It was its trap. Without warning, the beast struck. Its head smashed into the hull with such force that the entire ship lifted from the water, then slammed back down. Planks split. A spray of splinters ripped through the air like arrows. The captain, pale but defiant, bellowed for the men to man the harpoons. 2 spears flew, burying deep into the creature's hide. It didn't flinch. Instead, it turned one golden eye toward us, and I swear, I saw recognition. This wasn't just an animal. It knew exactly who we were, and why we had come. The beast surged upward in a column of muscle and rage, smashing down onto the deck with the force of a falling cliff. Masts splintered like twigs, sails ripped into the storm, and the deck heaved beneath our feet. Men were thrown screaming into the churning abyss, their bodies vanishing before they could even call for help. The harpoons that had struck its flesh dangled uselessly, the ropes snapping under its weight. The creature lashed its tail across the port side. Half the railing vanished in a single blow, and barrels of water and supplies tumbled into the foaming dark. The air was thick with salt and smoke, lightning to the sky open above us, each flash freezing the monster in stark, terrible detail. The ridged spines down its back, the yawning mouth lined with jagged teeth longer than swords, and eyes that gleamed with the cold patience of something that had ruled these waters since the age of gods. The captain shouted for fire. Oil was splashed across the deck, torches lit, and flames roared to life despite the rain. We drove the fire toward the beast, the heat licking its scales. It recoiled for the first time, a guttural bellow shaking the masts that remained. But then, with frightening swiftness, it slid back beneath the surface. The water went still for a heartbeat, too still. Every man aboard held his breath. When it came again, it came from below. The ship lifted, rising out of the sea as the creature forced itself upward beneath us. In that moment, we were no longer sailors. We were prey, balanced on the back of an ancient nightmare. The ship groaned like a wounded animal as the monster held us aloft. Timbers cracked, water poured in through the seams, and every man on board knew, if we stayed where we were, the sea would swallow us whole. Then the captain, his face pale but his eyes burning, shouted above the chaos. "It's not here for the ship, it's here for the food." In an instant, the meaning was clear. The hold was packed with salted fish, barrels of dried meat, and casks of oil-soaked grain, enough sent to draw any predator from miles away. "Bring the cargo forward," he roared. "We feed the beast, or we join it in the deep." Men scrambled like ants, rolling barrels toward the bow. The deck tilted, and more than one sailor was swept overboard before we could lash ropes to steady ourselves. The storm howled, the lightning struck, and still the monster lifted us higher. At the captain's signal, we smashed open the barrels, spilling the reeking feast into the sea. The water below churned as the scent spread, and for the first time, the beast hesitated. Its massive head broke the surface, jaws opening wide, the fetid breath of the abyss sweeping over us. With a final heave, the cargo slid into its moor. The creature dove, vanishing with the speed of a falling stone, and the ship crashed back into the waves, splintered but afloat. We had survived, but in the captain's eyes, I saw something darker. He knew the truth. We hadn't driven it away. We had fed it. The sea calmed unnaturally fast, as if the storm itself had been nothing more than the monster's breath. Rain thinned to a mist, the wind died, and only the groan of the battered ship broke the silence. Men laughed in shaky relief, hugging each other, slapping backs, thanking every saint they could name. But the captain didn't join in. He stood at the rail, staring into the black water where the beast had vanished. "Mark my words," he said softly, almost to himself, "the sea never gives without taking more in return." The days that followed were strange. The wind seemed always at our back, the currents guiding us toward a single unseen point. Fish swam in thick silver clouds beneath the hull, and seabirds followed our mast without rest, too many, too close. The air itself tasted wrong. At night, I began to hear it. A deep, slow thrum, like the heartbeat of the ocean, pulsing through the planks. At first I thought it was in my head, until others confessed they'd heard it too. The cook swore the water from the barrels smelled of rot. One of the younger deckhands swore he saw something massive keeping pace just under the waves, its shadow stretching longer than the ship itself. By the fifth night, no one was laughing anymore. Sleep came only in fits, and when it did, dreams were filled with a black moor and endless teeth. We had fed the beast, and now, it seemed, the beast was leading us somewhere. On the sixth morning, a faint outline appeared on the horizon. At first, we thought it a trick of the mist, a shadow of clouds, or a mirage born of exhaustion. But as we drew closer, shapes emerged, jagged cliffs crowned with dark, twisted vegetation, cliffs that seemed to lean over the water as if watching. The crew whispered nervously, "An island, but it feels wrong," one man muttered, clutching the ropes. The air smelled different here, metallic, heavy, almost electric. Even the birds that had followed us for days now circled overhead in silence, their cries absent. The captain tightened his grip on the wheel, his knuckles white. "Keep your eyes sharp," he said. "The sea brought us here for a reason, and nothing good comes easy." As we approached the jagged shore, the waves acted strangely, pulling us sideways, pushing us back, as though the island itself refused to be reached. I noticed ripples in the water, circles spreading outward, perfect and deliberate, as if something beneath the surface was observing us, testing us. Suddenly, the mist parted slightly, revealing a narrow channel between two cliffs. Dark shapes lurked at the edges, indistinct but enormous, moving just beneath the surface. The crew froze, eyes wide. I felt a cold, creeping fear. This was no ordinary island, no haven for weary sailors. The monster had led us here, and I knew, deep down, that what awaited us would be more dangerous than any storm or whirlpool we had survived. The moment we entered the channel, the air thickened, heavy with the scent of wet stone and strange, sweet-smelling flowers that grew in impossible colors. Mist curled around the cliffs like ghostly fingers, and shadows danced along the jagged rock faces as if the island itself were alive. Our ship glided into a sheltered bay, the water eerily still, reflecting twisted trees that leaned over like silent sentinels. Exotic birds with feathers glowing like molten jewels flitted among the branches, their cries sharp and uncanny. Each call echoed off the cliffs, magnifying the sense of being watched. The captain ordered the anchor dropped, but the chains seemed reluctant, rattling as if resisting the touch of human hands. I stepped onto the deck, heart pounding, and could see movement beneath the water, serpentine forms weaving through the shallows, too quick and fluid to be ordinary fish. From the shore, the trees shifted subtly. Branches bent toward us, leaves rustling though no wind blew. Tiny flowers glimmered in strange patterns, catching the light like a code, whispering secrets we could not understand. Somewhere deeper in the jungle, I heard a faint chanting, rhythmic, almost melodic, carried by the mist, a song older than any civilization I had known. Every step forward felt like entering a living painting, one both beautiful and terrifying. The island breathed around us, hiding wonders and dangers in equal measure. Treasure, yes, but also traps older than memory itself. I knew then that this voyage was unlike any before. Survival would demand every ounce of courage, cunning, and respect for the island's ancient power. As we stepped onto the soft, moss-covered sand, the jungle seemed to close behind us, thick vines twisting like serpents around ancient trees. The air pulsed with life, not just the calls of birds or the rustle of leaves, but a rhythm that felt deliberate, almost like a heartbeat echoing through the forest. Shadows shifted between trunks, and glimpses of movement caught my eye, limbs longer than a man's, scales glinting in the filtered light, eyes reflecting gold and green. My companions froze, hands gripping their weapons, breaths shallow. None of us had expected the island to be inhabited. From deeper in the jungle came a low growl, vibrating in the chest like the thrum of distant drums. A figure stepped forward, humanoid, yet distorted, with skin patterned like the bark of the surrounding trees and eyes that burned with cunning intelligence. It crouched, muscles coiled, watching us with predatory patience. The captain motioned for silence. One wrong step, one careless word, and the jungle itself might become our grave. The creature moved closer, each step deliberate, leaving no trace on the mossy ground, yet its presence was undeniable. Around us, the trees seemed to lean, shadows stretching like fingers to obscure our view. And then, from the underbrush, more appeared, not all alike, but all aware, all watching. The island's guardians were here, sentinels of some secret too ancient for mortals to understand. Treasure might lie beyond, but to claim it, we would have to survive beings older than memory itself. The first guardian lunged without warning, moving with a speed that belied its massive frame. My heart leapt into my throat as the creature's clawed hand struck the air mere inches from my face. Its skin shimmered with a strange iridescence, blending perfectly with the mossy jungle floor, yet I could feel its gaze burning through the camouflage. The crew scrambled, swinging swords and spears, but every strike met only shadow and lightning-fast reflexes. One man fell to the ground, narrowly missing the snapping jaws of another guardian. I could hear the sickening crack of breaking branches as the creatures leapt through the undergrowth, each movement calculated and terrifyingly precise. The captain shouted orders, his voice slicing through the chaos. Form a circle. Protect the center. We moved as one, shields braced, weapons raised. The creatures tested us, circling and probing, gauging our weaknesses. Every step felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm. One misstep could be our last. Then I noticed something, a faint glow emanating from a pattern of stones hidden under the foliage. It pulsed rhythmically, as if responding to the guardian's presence. The captain's eyes narrowed. He understood. This wasn't just a fight. It was a trial, a puzzle woven into the very heart of the island. We had survived the first assault, but I knew that beyond this confrontation awaited deeper dangers, more cunning traps, and secrets that could either make us rich beyond imagining, or end our lives in these ancient shadows. After what felt like an eternity, the guardians hesitated, sensing something in our resolve, or perhaps recognizing the courage in our hearts. The pulsing stones beneath the foliage glowed brighter, and one by one, the creatures retreated into the shadows, vanishing as silently as they had appeared. The jungle fell eerily quiet. Mist curled lazily between twisted trunks, and the faint glimmer of sunlight broke through the canopy, illuminating a hidden pathway lined with strange, carved symbols. At its end lay a cave, its entrance encrusted with jewels that caught the light like fire. We approached cautiously, hearts pounding, weapons ready. Inside, treasures beyond imagination gleamed in the dim light. Golden idols, chests overflowing with gems, silks dyed in colors I had never seen, and vessels of delicate porcelain. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and a faint hum seemed to vibrate through the walls, the island itself acknowledging our passage. The captain spoke softly, a rare smile on his weathered face. This is why we risked everything. But remember, Sinbad, the sea and its secrets always demand a price. I nodded, understanding that our survival had been a fragile gift. We had faced the storm, the maelstrom, the monstrous sea guardian, and the jungle's ancient sentinels, and emerged stronger, wiser, and richer. Yet in the shadows of my mind, a whisper lingered. The sea's mysteries were far from spent, and our adventures were only just beginning. With treasure secured and hearts still racing, we prepared to return to our ship, knowing the ocean awaited with more storms, more monsters, and more legends yet to be written.